Good morning, everyone. So today we will continue discussing the self, which is under the philosophical perspective of the self. So the history of philosophy is replete with men and women who inquired into fundamental nature of the self, along with the question of the primary substratum that defines the multiplicity of the things in the world. The inquiry on the self has preoccupied the earliest thinkers in the history of philosophy, the Greeks. The Greeks were the ones who seriously questioned myths and moved away from them in attempting to understand reality and respond to perennial questions of curiosity, including this question of the self. So the different perspectives and views on the self can be best seen and understood by revisiting its prime movers and identify the most important conjectures made by philosophers from the ancient times to the contemporary period. So through history, many have tried to understand self. Alright? It's because of the word curiosity. Various disciplines have often answered to the questions, who am I? Sino ba ako? Alright, so for today's lesson, I am going to discuss the philosophical perspective of the self. And since this is philosophy, so we are talking philosophy now in order to align who am I regarding on the self or the study of the self. Alright? So, since we are talking about philosophy, now philosophy, let us define what is philosophy. So, philosophy is about the ultimate causes of things as known reason, and that is why philosophy is defined as love of wisdom. Since there is desire to know the truth, this is in regarding also to the self. Kasama po siya sa philosophy, the self. Why? Because there is the desire to know the truth. And the self is of particular interest to philosophers. So first among them is the great Greek philosopher. It is Socrates. Alright? So Socrates was the first thinker in Western history to focus the full power of reason on the human self, who we are, who we should be, and who we will become. Socrates was convinced that in addition to our physical bodies, each person possesses an immortal soul that survives beyond the death of the body. Of course, Socrates explored this subject with his friends in the days following his trial before his sentence of death was executed. So a time in his life when the question of immortality no doubt that a special immediacy and significance. The following passage is from Plato. So we will discuss Plato. But before we proceed, let us know ano ang study or ano ang study ni Socrates regarding the self or understanding the self. So as I said a while ago, that Socrates is the great Greek philosopher. It means he said, okay, an examined life is not worth living. Bakit niya kaya nasabi ito? Okay, but before we dug deeper regarding understanding the statement of Socrates, before that we will understand the perspective of reality. Okay? According to Socrates, reality is dualistic. Okay? So the concept of reality, Socrates believed that reality is divided into two dichotomous realms. So as you can see on the screen, we have the two dichotomous realms. The first one is physical realm, and the second one is the ideal realm. Okay, let's explain this too. So before that, this brief exchange provide a condensed summary of Socrates' metaphysical framework. Okay, so as I said, according to Socrates, that reality is dualistic. Okay, so let's talk about the dichotomous realms. So first one is the physical realm. It is something changeable and transient and imperfect. Okay, it means which the body belongs to the physical realm. So ang body is belong kay physical realm because it is changeable, it is transient and imperfect. Okay, bakit natin masasabing changeable ang body? So when we grow up, it develops, right? Sometimes, let's say for an example, babae, nagbabago ang hugis ng katawan ng babae. Okay? Hindi lang yung katawan, all throughout the physical. Kaya nga, sabi physical realm, changeable, nagbabago. Especially pag nagdadalaga, nagkaasawa, nagkaanak, so nagbabago. Minsan, kunyari, si Maria, sexy nung dalaga, pag panganak niya, naging mataba siya. So, it changeable. It is transient. It means it is imperfect. Kasi nagbabago. Alright. Now, contrary to that, let's talk about ideal realm. So, ideal realm is unchanging and it means imperfect. It means perfect. So, when we talk about perfect, it is the immortal or in the immortality. So, something eternal and perfect which the soul belongs to the ideal realm. So, ang nabilong ka ideal realm is our soul. Alright. That is why, okay, according again kay Socrates, syempre si Socrates ang main idea nito, diba? Said that the self is the essence of the soul and it is equal. So, as you can see, physical is imperfect. Now, the ideal is perfect. So, equal pa rin siya. But the soul is perfect. The soul now, in order to achieve its perfection, because the soul striving for wisdom and perfection. So, our soul is striving for wisdom and perfection. One must use reason as a tool para maging perfect tayo. Okay? Para maging perfect. Now, for example, may activity tayo, may project tayo. Anong nakakapag-derive natin sa when we come up sa output na maging perfect siya? Of course, ang nagde-drive sa'yo nun is the soul. Paano maging perfect? Paano maging ipapasa ko to na perfect? So, ang nagde-drive dun sa'yo ay ang soul. Okay. But, as long as the soul is tied to the body, merong inhibition. What do we mean by this? Na nangyayari sa soul and it cannot achieve the perfect state. Kaya there is a continuous reflection na ginagamit o gagamitin natin or na ko or mo sa sarili in order to be wise and perfect. Especially kung tipong marami tayong times na nag-fail, so we reflect. Marami tayo nag-times na may failure, so we reflect. Kunyari, may problema tayo. Yung problema na yun yung nag-create sa failure natin. Okay? So, sa failure natin na yun, nagre-reflect tayo sa sarili in order to be wise someday. Okay? Para maging wise and perfect. Kasi, ito po yung nature ng soul. Being perfect. That is why we reflect. Continue nagre-reflect. Kaya sinabi ni Socrates, in examine life, okay? Yung sinabi niya kanina, an examine life is not worth living. Kaya that is why sinabi niya na examine life is necessary for us to know our purpose and value. At ito na yung parang ito na yung magiging way natin na soul searching. Okay? But when we talk about soul searching, hindi po tayo naghahanap ng jowa or soulmate. ito yung sinabi ni Socrates regarding sa kanyang statement that we have to examine life because in order to know our purpose and value. So, ito na yung sinasabing the soul searching. Hindi soulmate searching, ha? Soul searching. So, since we are talking about the soul searching and we are talking about the dichotomous realm, so we're going to proceed kay Plato. So before we proceed kay Plato, let us all remember or let's summarize regarding or all about Socrates in understanding the self. So Socrates' metaphysical scheme may, at first glance, seem abstract and impractical, but it has a profound impact on the way the self is understood. For Socrates, our body belongs to the physical realm. They change, they are imperfect, and they die. Our souls, however, belongs to the ideal realm. They are unchanging and immortal, surviving the death of the body. And although a close relationship exists between our soul and our body, they are radically different entities. Our soul strives for wisdom and perfection, of course, as I said a while ago, and the reason is the soul's tool to achieve the exalted state. But as long as the soul is tied up to the body, this quest for wisdom is inhibited by imperfection of the physical realm. So because as the soul is dragged by the body into the region of the changeable, where it wanders and confused in the world that spins around her. So, and the soul is like a drunkard. So that is why yung tipong nako-confuse, nagfi-fail, yung soul is striving for a reflection. Okay? Para ma-achieve yung sinasabi nating pagbabago. Alright, pagbabago. Para ma-achieve yung perfect and to be wise. Okay, but reason is powerful tool. That is why the soul to free itself from the corrupting imperfection of the physical realm and achieve communion with unexchanging. Okay. So, let's proceed kay Plato. Plato is the Athenian philosopher. Okay. Although Plato was for the most part committed to Socrates' view of the essence of the self, which is the soul, as a unified, immortal entity that remains the same over time. So Plato recognizes the inherent difficulties with this view. So in his dialogue, the Symposium, Plato cites the view of the female philosopher Diotima, who presents a very different perspective on the nature of the self. Alright. So, of course, Plato introduced the concept of tripartite self. Okay, what do we mean by tripartite self? Tatlo. Tri nga, diba? Tri. Hindi isa, hindi dalawa, kundi tatlo. Kaya, tripartite self. So, it is divided into three, ang self. That is why he called it tripartite self. So Plato elaborates his concept of the soul. Okay, the Greek word, as you can still remember, another term of self is the psyche. Okay, so such as, or in particular, he introduced the idea or tripart soul, or the self constituted. So the first one is reason. The second one is the physical appetite. And the last one is the spirit passion. So before we proceed to the tripartite self, sino ito si Plato? Who is Plato? Siya po ang estudyante ni Socrates. Okay? So estudyante siya ni Socrates, although Plato might parang inamin niya, little bit confusing yung study ni Socrates, yung teacher niya na si Socrates. But Plato believed in the aspect of Socrates in physical realm and the ideal realm, yung dalawang realm, dichotomous realm. So, naniniwala po siya dun. Pero sinabi niya, inadmit niya na medyo confusing siya. Alright? So, inintroduce ni Plato ang concept na tripartite self. So, divided into three siya. The first one is the reason, and physical appetite, and physical or passion. So let's talk about the reason. It is our divine essence. Reason is our divine essence. Okay. That enable us to think deeply, and we make choices. And of course, to achieve a true understanding of eternal truth. Yan po yung tinatawag na reason. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, pag nag-make tayo ng decision na wisely, we make a decision na wise para sa atin, so nandun pumasok si reason. Because, nag-strive kagad si divine essence. Of course, we have to think deeply. Hindi yung basta-basta lang na tipong, ganun to, ganito ito. Of course, laliman natin ang pang-unawaan natin. Kaya nga may kasabihan tayo, we always put love in understanding in every situation or in every statement na binitawan ng isang tao or nabasa natin. We have to think it deeply, or we have to dug the true meaning of that statement. Alright? So, of course, magre-react ba tayo kaagad? Doon papasok si have to make choices. Okay? Carefully. At may kasabihan tayo na we do not make decision when we are too happy and too sad or too angry. Bakit? Siyempre, pag masaya ka, parang nagde-decision ka na lang kagad kasi you feel happy eh. At the end of the day, parang nagsisi ka, ba't ko nasabi yun? Siguro sa sobra kong saya. Minsan, pagsisisi, nandun si pagsisisi. Then, sa sobrang lungkot mo, nagdesisyon ka. For example, malungkot ka, tapos yung girlfriend mo parang hindi suportado sa kalungkutan mo. So, you decide, mag-break na lang tayo. Okay? Kasi parang malungkot na ako sa relasyon natin. Then, at the end of the day, na-realize mong mahal na mahal mo pala yung girlfriend mo or yung boyfriend mo. Pero dahil dun sa na-feel nating kalungkutan, nagdesisyon tayo kaagad. Okay? Another, hindi naman yung boyfriend or girlfriend kasi kilig-kilig na naman kayo dyan. Okay, another. Nabagsak ka. Okay, nabagsak ka sa examination. Of course, you feel sad. And when you feel sad, nag-decide ka na hindi mo na ipagpatuloy yung subject na yun kasi you already fail. So, saan yung reflection din doon? Diba? According to Socrates, we have to reflect in order to make wise decision, and that wise decision is belong to Plato's tripartite self, the reason, our divine essence. So we do not make a decision when we are too happy and when we are too sad or too angry. Angry naman, nakakapag-decide ka kasi galit na galit ka. Then, at the end of the day, na-realize mo yung sinabi mo, mali pala yun. Hindi mo na mababawi yun. Kasi, nabitawan, it's been said and done. Wala ka nang magagawa dun. Okay? So, we have to think wisely. We have to make decision wisely. And that is part of Plato's tripartite self under reason, our divine essence. Now, let's move on kay physical appetite. It means our biological needs. So, our biological needs such as hunger, thirst, and even sexual desire. Kaya nga biological needs. Kung ginugutom tayo, kakain tayo. Kung nauuhaw tayo, iinom tayo ng water or juice or soft drinks. Okay? And even sexual desire, kailangan ng physical. Because kasama siya sa appetite natin. Okay? Kasi tao tayo. Tao lang tayo. and it is part of being human. But some people, kagaya ng tinatawag natin na single blessedness, wala sa kanila physical appetite ang sexual desire. Kasi when we talk about single blessedness, they are single at the same time hindi nila crave yung sexual desire. Okay, hindi ka tatawaging single blessedness kung single ka lang pero nagpapagamit ka sa iba. Or tipong may nangyayaring sex sa'yo sa buhay mo pero single ka. Ano yun? As a friend. So, hindi ka matatawag na single blessedness nun. Kaya may mga tao din naman na single blessedness. They are not priest. They are not mga madre. But they are single na dinedicate nila ang body nila kay God. Okay? Alright, so next is the spirit or what we call passion. So it is our basic emotions. So when we talk about our basic emotion, it is all about the emotions. From the word itself, emotions. It is the anger, it is the ambition, it is what we feel, empathy. So yun yung spirit and passion. And of course, kasali din po dito si love. Okay? Under the spirit and the passion is love. So these three elements of ourselves are in a dynamic relationship with one another. Sometimes working on concert, sometimes a bitter conflict. For example, we may develop a romantic relationship with someone who is intellectual companion, reason, pasok si reason, with whom we are passionately in love, love is spirit, and whom we find sexually attractive, igniting our lustful desire, the appetite. So, or we may find ourselves in personal conflict. So, torn between three different relationships, each of which appeals to different part of ourselves, the reason, the spirit, and the appetite. When conflict occurs, Plato believed it is responsible of our reason to sort out things and exert control. So, si reason, pag manandun na ang conflict, si reason po ang nagko-control kay physical appetite and kay spirit and passion. As I said earlier, we do not make decision when we are too happy, too sad, or too angry. Okay. Of course, reason, sort out things, and exert control, re-establishing a harmonious relationship among the three elements of our self. Alright? So, si reason ang nagko-control para may harmonious sa sarili natin. Kasi, for example, reason or divine essence, okay? Eternal truth. Okay, for example, si spirit, love natin yung girlfriend natin or yung boyfriend natin. But our physical appetite or our sexual needs is sa ibang lalaki or sa ibang babae. Example, mag-asawa na lang. Si lalaki, ang mahal niya, ang asawa niya. Pero, ang nakikita niya nandun yung physical appetite niya, hindi sa asawa niya, sa ibang babae or sa ibang lalaki or sa ibang tao. Alright, so may conflict. That is why si reason ang mag-take over, ang magko-control. What is right and what is wrong. How we make our decision deeply, wisely. Understand the situation. Of course, si tao, syempre tao, imperfect. Part siya ni Socrates na philosophy, imperfect. Ibig sabihin, unchangeable. Changeable because it belongs to the body. Nag-desisyon ngayon ng tao na piliin niya yung physical appetite. So, conflict na din po kaagad din yun. So, hindi siya wise na decision, naka-make ng wise decision because that person is too happy regarding on the sexual desire or to the physical appetite. And that person is too sad for the emotions na nararamdaman niya. So, pag si reason ay hindi masyadong nagamit, it can cause further conflict, problema. Alright? Ayos po ba tayo doon? So, of course, pag may conflict sa sarili regarding physical appetite and the spirit or passion, dapat ang mag-take over natin is the reason or our divine essence in order to avoid conflict and to have harmonious life. Alright, so I hope you learned something from our discussion for today. So, we will continue our discussion regarding on the philosopher na nag-study kay self sa next video. So, I hope you learned something from this video. I hope you stay well and stay safe, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.